Hello and welcome to the end of the season. It is winter 2025. Yeah. I clearly pay attention to the passage of time. It is the end of the winter 2025 season, so I'm going to talk about the animes that I watched. And I actually have a little more free time right now. So instead of being a responsible adult and getting important things done, I'm just going to watch more anime. So here is a list of the shows that I watched. I am just going down my plan to watch list, and these first couple of them are going to be older shows that I plan to watch at some point, and past me decided that I should watch them. And going over the first couple that I've already watched, I'm not sure what past me was thinking, but anyway, here's the list. And if you see something on there that you wanted to skip to, here's the times and everything. So let's get into it. Oh, and before I forget, spoilers for any of these shows. Not that I plan on talking or saying too many spoilers, but just in case, you have been warned. Arifureta. This show was not for me. And I'm a little surprised at how popular it is. I think at the time that I watched the first season here, the third season was already coming out. So apparently it's popular enough that they keep throwing out more of it. But I just could not get into it. So let's start with the minor problems first. First, he just makes a gun. Like he could have just made that at any point and decided to not until he was in a more desperate situation. Like it may have been just a problem with the anime storytelling. It could have been that he tried to make it before and just wasn't strong enough or wasn't powerful enough. Something could have been preventing him from actually doing it, but it didn't really feel like the anime made that very clear. It just felt like he got into a situation and then he pulled a gun out of his ass, almost literally. Okay, maybe not almost literally, but he did have a huge character change between the first episode and everything after. But I honestly don't think that was a huge issue, especially considering other things. He went from a typical generic isekai protagonist, hero wannabe, to a renegade playthrough, basically, which I think is a little bit of a step up. So I'm not going to complain too much about that. He does come off as a little edge lord wannabe kind of thing, but again, I don't think that's a huge issue. One thing that was not a huge issue, but it bugged the fuck out of me. Why, in the second episode, are they showing flashbacks to the first episode? I fucking know what happened one episode ago. And then in the third episode, he starts to go over the story so far as if it hasn't been two fucking episodes. I really started to worry that this was just going to be an every episode thing. The first three episodes kept going back to the first episode. Luckily, that stopped happening, but man, at the beginning, I was real worried. The side characters, I guess it would be the extra characters that they add to the party later on, I just found annoying. And it could have been, I will admit my bias on here, it could have been that I was just kind of done with the show by that point. By the time they start adding in wannabe Aqua and wannabe Darkness, that I was just kind of done. So instead of what normally may have been okay for me, just came off as super annoying. But I think it just adds to me not wanting to watch any more of the show. So I'm going to throw it in here as a negative. Another minor issue is the 300-year-old lolly vampire trope that they have, which I think can be done okay. And other shows have actually added this trope in, and it was fine. But I don't think this show accomplishes that. The first couple of episodes really just felt like I was watching some pedo fanfic or something. Like, the big issue is that she comes off like a helpless child through the first couple of episodes. And at the same time, they start to sexualize her. And that is weird. Like, really weird. So, if she doesn't do anything for the first couple of episodes and it's just her being saved, and then all of a sudden she appears before the main guy, I've already forgot his name. She gets in front of him while they're in the bath and like shows her complete naked self and is like, "Oh, I want you to see me naked." I at that point I I view her as a child because of how she's acted up until this point. It doesn't matter that she says that she's older if she acts younger. And that was the big issue that I had with this. And now I will say that at the very least, after I forgot 3 or 4 episodes, by the time they get out of the first labyrinth there, it is a little bit better. She does stop acting like the helpless child that she was beforehand, and it gets a little bit better. Like, I'm not gonna hate on. There are adult women who are smaller, and it's not my thing, but I'm not gonna hate on consenting adults and all that. But if you have that in your anime and you actually have her come off like a child, then yeah, it's just weird. Is I really don't know how else to say it. So as you can imagine, the first couple of episodes already had me on a downhill slide. I mean, they kept repeating the first episode basically through flashbacks and through this retelling the story, and then they have this was basically a kid and that they were trying to sexualize. I did not see how this was going to be a good show, and it probably did taint my view of the rest of the episodes. But this is a power fantasy, so some of the other minor stuff could be dismissed. Um, I I'm okay with power fantasies. There's sometimes I'm not in the mood for them, but I don't think that's the case for this because I'm also watching Solo Leveling, the second season, and I'm really enjoying it so far. So I don't think that is the issue. I think the biggest issue for this show is the extremely bad CG that they have for every enemy, and I feels like a stylistic choice that they went with bad CG for every fucking enemy. But because of that, I didn't want to watch any of the fights. And if you have a power fantasy where I don't want to actually watch the power fantasy part of the show, then it's not going to work out very well. Which is the reason why I'm surprised that this is so popular because I absolutely did not care about anything that was happening as far as any of the fights, any of the him showing off how strong he was getting. I actively did not want to watch it. So yeah, I could not get into the show, and I do not understand how other people will do it. And if it's someone else's thing, it's someone else's thing, but it is certainly not mine. And that's probably the nicest thing I could say about it. Now and then, here and there, this was a tone shift from the last one. Jesus. This was a lot darker. And I'm not just talking about like the mood of the anime. This when was this made? I think this was 2000. So this was but 25 years ago. So it is very much an older show, and you can tell almost immediately just by the art style alone. But like I said, the actual story is pretty dark, and you've got the mad, crazy dictator leader who's just killing and conquering countries and taking their people. You get child soldiers, you get rape victims, you get all of the fun stuff. The maybe not maybe fun stuff is not the word I want to use there. So to go into the story just a little bit here, a kid gets kidnapped and taken to another dimension, I think is what it is. So in this other world, they are suffering from a drought, and there is just no water pretty much anywhere. They are very limited on the amount of water they have. And meanwhile, this guy is trying to conquer the leader of the place that he got kidnapped to. Is just trying to conquer places, kidnap people, build an army so that he can continue taking over everything. And overall, I can see the story being decent, but there's a few plot holes that kind of bring the story down. Like the entire thing with them not having water, but also being able to travel dimensions. I mean, they kidnapped this kid from Japan, where you can just about throw throw a rock and hit water in pretty much any direction. So it just feels like they could solve this problem if they weren't stupid. It's more of they have a problem for the sake of that they need to have a problem more than anything else. And the main character is just, I mean, he's just a kid, but he is a very annoying kid. He has the personality of being very loud and obnoxious, and uh, dumb is really the word I want to use. I don't think he's that dumb, but he's a little dumb. He's dumb enough that mixed with the rest of his personality, it can get a little much. Like some of the side characters were a lot more interesting to watch. And to be fair, I think the show doesn't like focus mainly on the main character. So it's not like you watch 12, 13 episodes of just him. It does cut away and show everyone else a good amount of the time. The story has a slower pace, and that kind of feels like just something that older shows did. Like it's not super slow, but you can definitely feel it while you're watching it. Overall, I would say the show is fine. It's not anything super amazing. I'm not upset or anything. I don't feel like I wasted my time watching it, but I also wouldn't say that anyone needs to rush out and watch the show. It's okay, I guess. Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju. That took me so many tries, and I'm still not sure it's completely right. Lover Suicide Through Rakugo is a more English title for it, so that's a little easier to look for. I have no idea what past me was thinking whenever he added this to my watch list. I mean, I'll say the show is okay. There were some parts of it that I really liked and some parts that I didn't. But it's very different than what I would normally watch. Maybe past me was feeling adventurous or something. So first off, let me explain Rakugo. So it is basically a one-man show. One person goes up on stage and they tell normally a comedy, uh, with them playing every part. So it's Eddie Murphy before Eddie Murphy. They don't have a lot of props or anything. I think most of the time they have like a fan, and that's it. They are just sitting there and trying to act out every person that's in the story, which sounds okay on paper, but me watching it, I realize I am not a huge fan of it. And I think that takes away a lot of the appeal of this show. I really like the overall story, and they sprinkle in Rakugo throughout the entire thing, which I actually really like that idea. And it's something that I wish more shows did. Like I have been watching more music-based shows, and I've noticed a difference between uh, shows that are about music and music-based shows. Let me explain what I mean. There are lots of animes that have like or about making a band or making music and stuff, and you see one maybe two songs throughout the entire show. And then there are shows like what example am I thinking? Ya boy Kyoming, or there's no way I'm saying that name right. But that show had music like had a new song like every other episode. Like they slapped you with music. And that is what I prefer. Like if you're going to make a show about something, then I want more examples. I want to experience the thing that the show is about. And this show does that with Rakugo. Like every single episode, they hit you with more of it. The first episode, I think, is like 40 minutes, and there's a good 10, 15 minutes there where you're just sitting watching someone perform an entire act. And I may be making up those numbers, but that's what it felt like to me. It may be longer or shorter. I don't exactly remember how long it was. But I like when shows do that. I like when shows give you lots of examples of whatever thing that they are making the show about. Now, I don't personally like Rakugo, so it was kind of a hit and miss kind of thing. Well, I can understand why this show would be very much a hit or miss kind of show, because if you like that style of storytelling, this show can be absolutely amazing. But if you're like me and you didn't really find it all that enjoyable, then the show's okay. I still think the overall story still carries it a lot, but me not liking that style kind of brought it down for me. So this could be really, really good, or it could be okay at best. Sakamoto Days. I'm apparently watching a lot of power fantasies this season. This is a comedy power fantasy, kind of like One Punch Man would be the what I would say it's similar to, where the main character is super OP and they can have super over the top action scenes, but for the most part, it's all about comedy. For the first couple episodes, the comedy was good and it was entertaining, but I've noticed with power fantasies in general, for me at least, they can get old really fast, which is what I think happened to this show. And because by, I don't know, the eighth, ninth episode in, I was just kind of done. Like it was good at first, and then it just slowly started going downhill. My interest in it slowly started going downhill until it got to the later episodes. What I think happened is that by the end of the show, it just really felt like the jokes had played out already. Like everything that they had, all the jokes that they had played were just being redone repeatedly, and it really wasn't that interesting. So it had a strong start, and I really liked it, but it kind of, I don't want to say fell off because that sounds more harsh than what I am wanting to say. But that is kind of what happened. I just kind of lost interest halfway through the show. So I know there's already been, I think, a second season that's supposed to be coming out, or maybe a next part of this first season. I don't. I hate the way they do that, but I probably won't be watching it regardless. Yeah. Orb on the movements of the Earth. I've already talked about this show once before when it was at the halfway point, so I'm going to try not to talk too much more about it. And in the last video that I made, or the last time that I talked about this, I had nothing but positive things to say about it. And let me say, I'm just going to continue to glaze it this time. Honestly, for me, this was a 10 out of 10 show just on the storytelling alone. Each episode felt like it was pulling me in, like I wanted to know more. I wanted to keep watching. And I think a big part of that is that there wasn't a single main character from the beginning, or from near the beginning. It really felt like they didn't want the story to be about one person. They wanted it to be about a movement. So while each individual story is good, seeing how they intertwine into the big overall story made each individual story more interesting. Like watching to see how whatever their actions are, whatever they're doing, how that is going to fit into the big picture, is a big reason I think as to why the story is so compelling and made me want to keep watching, dive in. I'm not sure the the best word to use here. It could also be that the general sentiment throughout the entire show is that curiosity and discovering the pursuit of knowledge is a good thing. And that kind of resonates with me. I don't know how historically accurate this show is. My guess is that it's not. And I can understand there are some similarities. At the very least, there are some similarities with how it played out with actual history with how the church handled all of that. And I can kind of understand how some people can very easily watch this and come to the conclusion, church bad because of how they treated all of that. And I don't want to get too much into my religious beliefs or lack thereof, I guess. But I do like where the show kind of ends on with that idea that you can have both a pursuit of knowledge and religious ideas. Because that's kind of where my beliefs are, that you should want to pursue knowledge regardless of whatever your religious beliefs are. If you have religious beliefs that learning things is bad, then you're probably getting conned. ReZero Season 3. Arc 5 is done, and this is my favorite arc. So, overall, I think that they did really good with this adaptation. Before this second half came out, I was talking about how this was going to be, or this was the part that I was the most iffy on because I wasn't sure how well they were going to do all of the action and everything. But I actually think they pulled it off pretty well. I would actually say that some of the fights were fucking awesome. But this was a unique experience for me because this is the first time that I have watched the anime after reading the novels. So before, I think I started reading the web novel when it was during the second season, and I had caught up to the anime at the time that it was ending. So the last episode or two was the time that I actually caught up with the web novel. So I knew what was happening for the last episode, but by that point everything was done and it didn't really matter. This was the first time that I already knew everything going in, and I think that kind of changes my experience with the anime. And I really hate to be that guy, but the novels are better. Now, don't get me wrong, I do like the anime version. It is still good. I just like the novels a little bit better. Okay, what I think I want to do is talk about a few complaints that I have seen. One is we were talking about the fights and everything. One of my favorite fights from the season is Garfield's fight. And I saw a lot of people with mixed feelings on it, which I actually completely understand. In the web novel, it is absolutely amazing, but I think the fight works better in written form because a lot is happening in such a short amount of time, and it is much easier to get the details down and read it at a slower pace so you can figure out every single thing that is happening. So there are different ways that you can portray this in an anime, and they decided to go with the real time version, I guess. And that can be confusing if you don't know what's happening beforehand. Again, because I read the web novels before, I knew what was happening, so it was really fun to see it happening in real time. But for anime only people, it may not be that good because it can be confusing just because of how much stuff is happening all at once. I do think that it would have been better if they had slowed things down so that they could point out each individual decision that Garfield was making that led to his victory. But they did what they did. It's fine. It just kind of seems like they were more pandering to the novel readers rather than the anime watchers. And now another complaint that I saw had to do with the overall story. ReZero definitely falls within the murder mystery category. And this season is very much action based. So I can understand people who are anime only coming in and they are wanting more of that murder mystery feel that the first two seasons had, and then this is just completely different. Now, one thing that really hits for me is character growth. And for me, this entire season was just showing off the character growth that happened in the last season and in the year in between the end of that season and the beginning of this season. Which is the reason why I still really like this arc. But I can understand coming in and wanting that murder mystery category and then finding something completely different and not liking it as much. So I have some sympathy for people who don't like the change, but I am not one of them. And it's fine. The next arc is about to go back to the murder mystery part anyway, so relax. So the last thing that I want to talk about is the cut parts. So I saw a lot of novel readers talking or complaining about the parts that were cut for the anime. And some parts I agree would make the show better, and other parts it really felt like they were just complaining just to complain. And I'll go over the details of those differences when I get to it in my videos in like 2 years by the time I actually get to this arc. But there is one thing that I want to say to the novel readers, because this is something that it's just my mentality going into it. There are going to be differences. There are going to be cut content from the novels. You're just going to have to accept it. To be more specific, I do think there is cut content that if they had included it would make the show a little bit better. Not like a whole lot, but a little bit better. But I don't think there's anything that I remember being cut that's actively worse because it was cut from the anime. And those were more of the comments that I am talking about now. Because I did see far too many people complaining about something being cut that really did not change the story. It didn't change the story enough to be bitching about. Maybe I'm just adding to the problem now that I'm bitching that other people are bitching. Or maybe I am just misremembering since I have mostly Arc 4 on the brain at the moment. But I think as far as cut content goes, this arc did the best. Like there was the least amount of important stuff cut compared to the last few arcs. Okay, let me end with this. I think White Fox is doing an amazing job. They've always done really good with the storytelling, and this was their chance to show off that they can also do the action scenes really, really well. So I have nothing but praise to them, and I am looking forward to the next season. Dr. Stone's Science Future. They have made it to America, and of course, there's guns. If they got there and there's just sentient guns walking around, I really wouldn't have been that surprised. I've said before that my interest in this show has slowly decreased through the seasons, but there's always just enough science to keep me watching. There's enough to keep me interested, but not enough to get me excited about the show. Well, this is probably just a me thing, because when I started watching this, I was more interested in the science and the building up from scratch. And now they're kind of at the point where they're focusing more on the story, which is fine. It's just not what I wanted from this show or what I want from the show. It's still good enough that I'm going to keep watching it, but this may actually be the last time that I talk about it. I'm not really sure what else I'm wanting to say about the show in general. The show is fine. If you like the previous season, you'll probably like this season too. I'm going to keep watching it. There's just really not much else that I want to add. So unless something happens in the next season that really makes me want to talk about it, I will probably skip that. Solo Leveling Season 2. Okay, I gotta say, after the first season, I really wasn't a huge fan of this show. It seemed like it was just going to be a typical power fantasy where weak guy gets super strong, and that was going to be pretty much it. After the second season, yeah, that's just kind of how it is. But I have found that I am really, really liking the second season, or I really like the second season, especially compared to the first. And I think what the difference is something really small. In the first season, he is trying to hide his newfound power, and I have seen that through so many different power fantasies where someone is just super OP, but they have to hide it or no one recognizes it for some reason. And in the second season of Solo Leveling, he starts to get more public with his powers to the point that at the end of the season he is just out about everything. Well, at least to the people that saw it. Everyone knows that he is super strong. That's the point. Now, don't get me wrong. Most of this show is just high action and aura farming. The fights are really well done and they're fun to watch. It's probably why the show is so popular. But for me, that little bit of a difference of him or his strength becoming public made the difference for me. It went from being I don't want to say generic power fantasy, but basically a generic power fantasy to being at least a little more interested to see where it's going to go. With a lot of power fantasies, I watch it just for the spectacle, basically, for the fun fights, and that's about it. With this, there might be more to it that I might be interested in, but that's a lot of mights, a lot of probablys, maybes. So we will see if the next season ends up ruining all of that for me. I won't keep my hopes up too high, but I am looking forward to seeing what happens. So that is everything that I watched for the winter 2025 season. Let me know if I missed any shows. I'm sure there were. I watched more this season than what I normally do, but there's still so many new shows come out every season. There is no way for me to catch everything. But let me know if there's something that I should have watched, and I will probably end up watching it at some point. I have far too much time on my hands. Anyway, that's it. See ya. The birds outside are super loud. They're probably not loud enough to be picked up by the mic, actually, which is just going to make me sound crazy saying this. But they're loud enough that it's bothering me while I'm trying to talk. That's right, I'm talking about you, motherfucker. Why don't you get out of here with your camera having ass? That's what I thought.